Hi again. Welcome to our channel and our Sunday talk. This is our usual weekly talk after we had our morning talk, which we only do once monthly. So you can catch that next time the third Sunday of the month comes around in February. But here you are now. Thank you for joining us. We have a lot of cool people here live. And for those of us who are joining us, for those of you who are joining us on the replay, welcome. Do you want to do the YouTube spiel, Mushtaq?
Okay, yeah, there's got to be somebody in the world who has not heard this yet.
I mean, we could skip it.
No, why would we want to skip it? We can say to everybody who's watching us on YouTube, welcome. And if you haven't done so yet, let me invite you to subscribe to our channel. It would be wonderful if you did. We would love to have you. Uh, there is a special prize for subscribing, and you won't know what it is until you get it, and it won't be from us. It'll just show up one day, like, a bird falling from the sky or something. Hopefully, it won't actually be a bird falling from the sky, but it could be. You never know. But yeah, and you will have our undying gratitude because we appreciate it, knowing people that care enough to actually hit that subscribe button. It's a very small thing for you, very important thing for us. And let me invite you to hit the like button. That like button magically informs the YouTube AI that this is a cool video. And the more times it's reminded of that, the more likely we are to be moved up in however it is that figures out how to tell people what videos to watch. So we would love it if you did both of these things. But even if you don't, we're happy that you're watching this. So there.
So there. So thank you. We're glad that you made it. And as I mentioned, we've already done one talk today. So our
If
subject
our eyes
matter this
cross,
evening.
there's a reason for this.
Yeah, exactly. Our subject matter this evening is pertinent. We kind of have to take our own advice on this. And that is, we're going to be talking about the importance of rest and recovery after making what is called a super effort.
Or
So,
just in general.
seriously, just in general. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Mushtaq, you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Ready for what?
Are you ready to talk about resting while you're not resting? I know. Do it. You can do it.
Do it. I can do it. Um, all right. So here's the thing. If you do not take care of yourself, if you do not recuperate from exertion, if you do not rest after working hard, if you do not get enough sleep, it will make you stupid. Not an insult. You can check this. Go out and take some internet test that like test IQ, something like that. Then stay up for 48 hours straight. Then take the test again with different questions and watch how the two turn out. If you are exhausted, you will not do as good on the test. And your attention will be flagging. Now, we talk a lot about attention here. We say that attention is the coin for which you use to pay for your enlightenment, or something silly like that. If we didn't say it, we should have said it, and we will say it at some other point. But for the moment, attention is very, very important. And the more tired, the more fatigued you get, the less attention you have. And the less attention you have, the less attention you have to pay for your existence. Something to think about. So, what does this look like? Cherie made it in here tonight, right? Good, because I'm going to be calling on her.
Sure is here.
Yay. So 3,000 or so years ago in India, you had the warrior class. And they had a very specific way of training, and we read about it, and we can kind of get a sense of what it was. First of all, they would train in ways that strengthen their bodies, right? They would go out and lift heavy things and swing humongous clubs about their heads ferociously and all of this kind of stuff. And then they would practice. They would get out the swords and the spears and the shields and all of the stuff that they did, and they would spar with each other, and they would drill with their weapons and do all of this sort of thing. And then, after that, they would do things that actively helped them to recover from the first two things. They would get massages and eat really good food and do specific kinds of stretching. My theory is that the exercises, the physical exercises that we look at and think of as yoga today probably came out of this, or a bunch of them did. Restorative practices to bring your body back into balance after you have worked really, really hard and stressed it and maybe gotten a few injuries. Um, I can't back that up with any hard proof, but I have enough soft proof that I'm convinced of it, whether it's true or not. And that's all that matters after all. Um, so, my question, of course, then becomes, why don't we do this now? What is it that made us forget that there are three parts to this? Not just one part, but three parts. You know, you have to strengthen the machine. You have to train at what you're doing, whether you are training in a martial art, whether it's dance, whether it is field hockey, doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you're doing, you have to do some training in that skill. And then you have to do the recovery. And it's very, very important to do that last part. Otherwise, you will burn out. We used to see this in the pseudo Gurdjieff schools that popped up a lot in the 70s and 80s. There were all of these guys who were like, I understand Gurdjieff, and I'm going to teach you everything. And what they did was they had everybody do super efforts. Every day you're out digging ditches or moving rocks or whatever, just hard physical labor pushing you past your limits, which is good to do sometimes. But there was no point for recovery. Now, interestingly, cults do this. One of the way cults work, and a great example of this is the Moonies, they would exhaust their people. A lot of physical labor, terrible food, lack of sleep, getting 4 hours of sleep a night. And you become very malleable because your critical faculties begin to decay after just a little bit of that. And so while there is a place for making really powerful, what Gurdjieff called super efforts in the work, it is not the primary thing that you do. Going without sleep every day is bad for you. Going without good food is also bad for you. Living off of a handful of rice and a little seaweed is not conducive to your own awakening. It's okay to do that for bits of time. I'm not saying never, never fast or never stay up late and do your practices. I'm saying that there has to be a balance in these things. Balance to everything. That's our way. That's the way we like. And we like that because, amongst other things, it means that we get to have good meals. So I'm going to pull up my notes and consult myself. So We got the first and the second parts down pretty good. We've got exercise and training down, right? Everybody can do that. But let's take a look at the recovery part. And I say that there's three parts to recovery. There is the passive recovery, there is active recovery, and there is internal recovery, for lack of a better term. And if you think, gee, these sound a little bit like the three laws, wholly affirming, wholly denying, and wholly reconciling, you'd be right. They fit right into it. I think that they are that universal. So passive recovery includes rest and sleep. It includes nutrition. It includes body work. And it includes recreation. Recreation in the sense of play, of stimulating your awareness in certain ways that are not like massively hard to do. Um, you go canoeing on a gentle river. That's recreation. This is not shooting the rapids on the Grand River or something like that.
It might not be getting lost in the woods, right?
Yeah, might not be getting lost in the woods. Might not be going over a class 5 rapids. But
An easy day of it, more
yeah.
like.
So these three things are of paramount importance. The first and most paramount is your body needs enough sleep. Let me repeat that. Your body needs enough sleep. This will change over life, over your lifetime. A baby sleeps 3/4 of the time. An old person like me, my average sleep is between 6 and 7 hours, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. Sometimes I really like 8, though. Um, you know you're getting enough sleep when you wake up and you feel refreshed. If you wake up and you're really tired, something's off and you are not doing your recovery as well as you could. There is nothing wrong with deep sleep. I mean, yeah, I know that Gurdjieff said some things about, sleeping and dreaming and all of that sort of thing, but, you know, all the best evidence we have says that sleep is restorative. And we need that in order to be able to access the full powers of our awareness and intention. It is the lubricant that makes the gears of our being not grind. So, rest. Food. Food is simple. Food doesn't have to be hard. Eat a lot of vegetables. Vegetables are good for you for the most part. Don't eat anything you're allergic to, but generally eat a lot of vegetables. Avoid grains for the most part. This is not to say do not have rice with your curry, for God's sake. You got to have rice with your curry. It's absolutely essential. But you don't need 4 bowls. And you want clean protein, which means if you eat good meat. Eat meat that has been pastured, that has been ethically raised and ethically slaughtered. There is such a thing as ethically slaughtering animals. So as my a good friend who raised Highland cows said, my cattle have a wonderful life. Every day of their life is great. And then they have one bad day. And that's it. And that's what you want. Um, and if you don't eat meat, that's fine too. I have no moral opinion on vegetarianism or God forbid, veganism. Uh, Not because it's eating plant-based is particularly bad. It's just that bad recipes. But yeah, but it's how you eat and what you eat. Eat clean. Um, who was it? Michael Pollan? Was it he who said, you know, eat real food, mostly vegetables,
Yeah,
or something?
that was
Yeah, no,
Colin. Yep.
yeah, and that is, oh, we lost somebody. That is, I think, good advice. Eat real food, which means if it comes in boxes, you have to be a little suspect of it. I mean, there are prepared foods that are perfectly good for you. Pickled foods are often very, very good. I mean, who doesn't love kimchi? Kimchi is excellent. If you want to work on your gut biome, kimchi will work on your gut biome better than virtually anything else you can think of. Sauerkraut, the same way. You know, our body is like pickled stuff. Um, things like that. So we have getting rest and eating right. And then we have the physical component of it. Just like there are ways to use your body that build your strength, there are ways to use your body that help you recover. Um, you know, Cherie is here. She does this thing called stretch therapy, which is exactly that. It's not building you up, making you more flexible. It's recovering your range of motion. Chime in here, Cherie, because I'm talking about your stuff. Uh,
Yes, 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 I'm here. Yeah, we focus on feeling, so that it's not just a task of trying to get a pancake or touching your toes and things like that. We use all of these exercises to actually get in touch with our internal landscape deeply, not just a superficial thing. You become very aware of your own body and what it needs, and each stretch will then lead on to the next stretch because you're listening to your body. You can feel, actually, I now need to do something behind me or to the side or rotation, and being able to look after yourself without having to always go to a class or a teacher or a therapist or anything like that. It's very empowering. And what we have found is that our core people who've been in the system for 20 years or more, they look different from the rest of the population in the way they're aging. They're moving well at every age, and that's always been my goal. So you can see that the foods that we eat make a big impact, but you don't know until you've had 5 years of it, and then 10 years, and then 15 years, and then 20 years. And then you go to more funerals where you're looking at your peers who are really decrepit, and that's a big warning. But if you can get that warning early and young and start straight away, excellent. I actually had a new client this morning, and I always give this advice to people, is sit on the floor. Every time you eat, you sit on the floor. Not comfortable, because that makes you move, and you've got to shift and move around. We, in this modern age, always want to be more comfortable, but we're so comfortable that we've actually trained ourselves into the shape of what we sit on. So we don't go through full ranges of movement. We don't fully flex our knees or our hips or our ankles. So we're always complaining. So we sit on the floor most of the time. It's just fabulous. And not saying that chairs are bad. They have their usefulness as well, but we just don't spend as much time as the modern person. So this is very helpful for being that full rounded person So being able to relax more when you're in a strong position, and then feeling how your body is objecting, how your little voice inside is saying, get out, get out. And I actually have started saying to people, don't get out, back it up, stay in there and feel yourself actually educating your body. This is safe and useful, but not forcing it. It's just got to get comfortable there. And that's what we do. So when we do that, we can spend more time at bigger ranges, and you automatically acquire a certain kind of strength with that. And that's useful. Enough said?
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly that.
I mean, the thing about massage in general is, I don't know about elsewhere, but stateside, it's actually hard to get access to, body work if you don't have the money, if you don't have the good insurance to cover it.
You could
And
actually buddy with somebody. You don't
yeah,
have to get a professional person. I think we have lost the ability to touch another person without any sexual energy in it. Just to be able to just rubbing someone's back. How comforting is that when someone's feeling a little lost or needing that contact? And particularly in this current age of COVID, I have found people are skin hungry because they're isolated. They're not feeling what a human feels like. And so being able to touch someone with care, very difficult, because so many people are suspicious of other people. We're all trying to be very careful, all those kinds of things. But there is possibly a person in your close contact sphere that you say, let's give each other a foot massage. We can have a glass of wine or something, but we're sitting at opposite ends of the couch and learning to touch someone's feet. I mean, there is nothing more powerful, I think, than, wow, you got to get over yourself to touch someone's feet and actually touch them with care. So you become accustomed to the contact and it feels nice. What you think feels nice, you can try on someone and they can give you feedback. That's part of educating ourselves to communicate with more than just our voices. And it's a really lovely thing. You don't have to get a professional to do it. And in fact, what I found as being a massage therapist as well for 25 years is it's the simple style, low loading, repetition, flowing. It feels lovely. And being able to use that in your own awareness practice. How are you touching that person? Would you touch a pet that way? When you have pets, you don't go dum, 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 dum like that. You actually, it's soft. It's really, they lean into you. That's when you know your touch is good. When somebody leans into you, when a pet leans into you, you know you're on the right track, and it's not hard.
I think that's a really good way to communicate that, given that, as I mentioned, there is this seeming lack of access, and yet we do have resources around us that we can tap into. And sometimes other people are a resource. Our companions
Yes.
are a resource.
And if you look at the traditional stuff, again, I point back to India because um, there, your people who teach martial arts, who teach the traditional martial arts, work on their students as massage therapists. I have seen this in traditional wrestling, in the arts from down in southern India. You find it in Ayurvedic medicine. It's considered a treatment, and it makes a difference. And we seem to have lost that from our culture. But when it comes to passive recovery, having somebody do that kind of body work on you, especially, I mean, some of the Indian stuff is kind of intense where they're standing on your back and using their feet and heels to like dig in and force your muscles to release. Feels good afterwards, but in the moment, you got to work hard to stay in your breath. that's one thing. But just having somebody work on you and relax your muscles, that's usually enough. Now we get to active recovery. Active recovery is it is doing certain exercises that are gentle and force your lymphatic fluids to move, keep the blood flowing, keep you supple. Um, some of the some of the things that we do that are like qigong, for instance. There are some qigong practices that are really good for active recovery. Um, I myself am fond of a series of exercises called the Five Tibetans, which are not Tibetan, as far as we can tell, have nothing to do with Tibet. Um, there was a wild story about them, you know, uh, coming from a secret Tibetan monastery and all of this kind of stuff. And, that was back when everybody was claiming that anything that was cool came out of secret masters in Tibet, back in the days of Blavatsky and that sort of thing. We don't know where they came from, but we do know that they work if done correctly. And that little caveat at the end is the important bit. Um, but as it happens, I'm training Zainab right now in how to do the Five Tibetans as best as I can. Uh, over the interwebs. And hopefully one day soon she will be teaching them out there to people because they're really cool exercises. Um, but anything like that, any kind of movement that doesn't stress you, um, but opens you up. Another really good one is doing Surya Namaskar, the sun salutation from yoga. I mean, all of the other yoga stuff, I could take or leave, but I learned sun salutation when I was a kid, and I love it. And
Feels good.
it feels good, yes. It feels really good. And um, learning to do that is not a bad thing. So I would suggest looking into those two things. Um, and
JS says he does the sun salutation almost daily.
and that's why you look like you're a kid.
In a good way.
In a good way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that if I had to be stuck on a desert island and I only had one exercise that I could do, it would be sun salutation more than any other.
Yeah.
Cup
Yeah.
drill is good
Sharice
too,
teacup drill. Yeah.
but that's where you're moving the hands around and down and up and all of that. That is, it's not quite as full body. It doesn't work on the core like the sun salutation does. Sun salutation just wakes your core right up.
The teacup drill, I don't just do it on the spot. I actually do it out and back and around, and that way
Yeah.
it's the same shape, but you just extend
Oh
your
yeah,
limb.
there's all sorts of ways of doing it. I love the teacup drill, only I do it with knives.
So
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I mean, because I learned it from Pencak Silat, right? You got that going, so you have your knife and you're moving it around and moving it out and moving it back and moving it up and down and all of this kind of stuff. Uh, and so, yeah, it's good for that. Sun salutation is better, as far as I'm concerned. That's my personal opinion. Yeah. Mileage may vary. But yes, the teacup drill is another really good one because fortunately we are not stuck on a desert island. We can have as many things as we want. So yes, thank you for reminding me of the teacup drill because that is a good one. So sun salutation, five Tibetans, teacup drill, all of these things are restorative exercise. They're active recovery. Um, a while back, we did a talk on training and practice. And I'll put a link to that in at the end of this because that will cover in depth how to the difference between practice and training and how to modulate it in such a way that you never get sick or burned out. What am I forgetting about Qigong? Five Tibetans. Yeah, active recovery stuff you can do every day too, which is very, very nice. It doesn't burn out your muscles like say even working with club bells or kettlebells, things like that.
Weight stuff.
Yeah. So now we get to the important bit, the one that has been left out, and that's internal recovery. It's the single most neglected aspect of training. Um, Now, this all came originally out of martial arts for me because first I had to figure out how to not get burned out while I was doing it. And then later on, I had to figure out how to keep my students from getting burned out when I was teaching it. And so a lot of this is coming from that. Uh, Internal recovery addresses the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of recovery. Whether you're training martial arts or anything else. Uh, if you're having a rough day, say at work, it may have nothing to do with physical. Maybe you had enough sleep, but somebody at work is being an ass and it's working on you. And you need to recover from that as much as you need to recover from having done heavy lifting in the gym. One of the things that we forget is that the work is hard on you. And we need to be able to address that hardness. It's like, here's the thing. If you are training physically, if you're like training for a contest and you win, the testosterone levels in your body go up. Whether it's martial arts or basketball or football or table tennis or debate even. Believe it or not, even debate will do this. You win the debate, your testosterone levels go up. Male or female, doesn't matter. You lose, they go down. And in both of those cases, you need to recover from that and bring yourself back to a state of homeostasis, a state of balance. Walking around with too much testosterone is not good. Walking around with too little is not good. Walking around, it's like the three bears. You want just the right amount. So there are times like when you're into work and you're doing the things that you're doing, and there will come a time when you realize, oh my God, this is going to change my entire life forever. I will not be the same person. And you have to deal with that because you're used to being the same person. And the work asks you to leave that behind. Leave behind your identification with your personalities. And this is equivalent to training in martial arts and then one day realizing, oh my God, I'm training to hurt somebody. If I actually had to do this to another human being, it would not be good for them. It's one of the places where students quit when they realize that what they're learning is specifically designed to do injury to another human being. You have to come to grips with that. You also have to come to grips with your own moving towards personality not being central in your life, you not being help me out here, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, you have to let go of those attachments to sometimes being who you thought you were, who other people thought you were. And you may, in a sense, disappoint some people, and you may be shocked to discover what you yourself can become. And those things can be scary. So how do you let that go? How do you make peace with that? But you must.
Yep. So, what do you do for this? What do you do for the reconciling force, for the internal taking care of yourself? First thing, meditation. And by meditation, I mean what Patanjali meant when he said the word that we usually translate as meditation. It is being able to focus deeply on what is presented to you in consciousness. And it's different than, it's different than a lot of other meditations, the way it's described in the Yoga Sutras. And we'll probably have to talk about that at length at some point. I can do that. And Jayesh can make fun of my bad pronunciation of everything Sanskrit.
Yours and mine.
Yeah. I tell people, I speak about 6 languages, all of them with a heavy Southwestern accent.
I didn't believe him until I heard it. And then I was like, oh, I get what he meant by that now.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to pop into the Sufi house that I hung out with and just, Assalamu alaikum, y'all.
And he, until I knew him better, he did a great job of hiding his Southwestern accent.
Yep.
Not that he needed to, but it's just one of those things.
I question this idea of meditation being relaxing. First, I had a question.
Sure.
What's the largest muscle in the body? And no, it's not the butt muscle. It's the muscle of attention. I think you've commented on this before.
In one way or another, yeah. But you'll note that I didn't say that meditation is relaxing. I said it's restorative.
Well, where I was going with this was mental concentration, which is what I think I use to have control over my attention, which to me is the core of becoming present. And so for me, meditation is an action of that nature, and it's very exhausting for me, at least my meditation is.
It can be, because it demands that your attention stay present. I mean, it's easy to chant mantras, right? And that's a form of meditation. You know, you can do the Catholic rosary, you can do various Sufi zikrs, you can do Krishna bhajans, whatever. And that can be relaxing and that can take you into really nice spaces. That's not what we're talking about. So, when you listen to the Yoga Sutras or you read the Yoga Sutras, the last four spokes are, well, they're all important, but the last four spokes, you start with withdrawal of the senses. Withdrawal from what, you may ask? And that is from what your senses are attached to. You begin to like pull them loose from however they're fixated in the world. Then you get to concentration. Concentration is taking all of that awareness that you had stuck on all of this sensory stuff and focusing it down. Then you have what we usually translate as meditation, which is taking that focus and creating it's English does not have the right words for it. It's sort of an I-thou relationship with it, intersubjective relationship between yourself and that upon which you are focused. And then the last bit is entering into the flow state. And when all of these things, the last three happen together, it's called the great practice, the samyama. And it's very potent. And it's a lot of hard work at first. And then it is hard work. And then it is, yeah, it's pretty hard work. I have not gotten past, yeah, it's pretty hard work, but I'm pretty sure there will come a point where it will be, yeah, it's a little hard. We hope, fingers crossed. So meditation in that form is incredibly useful. What you are looking for is to bring your attention, your intention, and your presence under control. And then we have to find a way to counter negative emotional states. One of the ways that I recommend for this is developing, the Japanese word is zanshin. It means remaining mind. And that means that emotions come up, you are present with them because you've practiced this kind of meditation for long enough that the emotion is just an object given to your consciousness. You don't hold on to it, you let it pass through you, and you stay present. This is also hard work. But doing this every day, even for a little while, 12 minutes a day, they say, is all that it takes. And you can even break that up into 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and 3 minutes. And it will create profound changes. So, these are my take on passive recovery, active recovery, and internal recovery. And I think that it is absolutely necessary, if you are in the work, that you do these three things. If you can't do them, you can't do the work. If you are not sharp enough to be present, you're not going to be able to do the work under any circumstances.
I mean, you and I know what that's like from personal experience.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm fried and I don't allow myself recovery time, it's like there's no getting past that. Faking it till you make it doesn't work. This is something that needs to actually be followed through on. And that means eating enough to give yourself energy, getting enough rest to have like a, a reset in your body to feel rested. And it also means dealing with, as we always say, the detritus that comes up.
I
All
love
those,
that word.
yeah, we do love that word. The emotional toxins, as you were just describing, that you deal with by, being with them without getting hijacked by them and letting them pass by. So you're not denying that they're there, but you're not getting all wrapped up in them to the point that they become the story you're carrying with you forward, because that's not going to help you recover. That's just going to lead to more exhaustion ultimately. So on each of these levels, giving yourself the opportunity to clear the slate as best as you're able to, given your circumstances on any given day, is really important.
And then if you are in the work and you are required to make it one of those super efforty sort of things, you will have the energy to do it.
It could be unexpected even, but
Yeah.
because you've been pacing yourself and allowing time for recovery, you have that well that you can draw from.
So what do you think, folks? We've been talking for about 40 minutes now.
I'm going to call on people, I think.
Yeah, they all
David.
look like they need to do some recovery.
David, what are you thinking about? Or do you have any questions?
I'm just thinking about how there are some aspects of recovery that are common to everybody, like getting your required amount of sleep. But then within that, there are the personal parts where it could be 6 hours, it could be 8 hours. The teacup drill might not work for you, but the Five Tibetans might. And then figuring out your blend is really important. And then maybe internal recovery gets I guess more complex in my mind, because you have to figure out which practices are right for you, I guess, with your teacher. And then but overall remaining present to what is in your consciousness would be common to everybody, it seems like. So I'm just thinking about those different levels of personal and wider and more objective.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah,
to be
the
chewing on
internal,
that. I feel like
yeah,
you're onto something there, though.
yeah, the internal. So you as a dancer, you have to deal with all three of these
Consistently, yeah.
consistently, yeah, because rehearsal schedules are insane, and your work is very physically demanding, and there's a high emotional cost to what you're doing. Um, and I don't think that that gets taken into consideration enough. So you're going to definitely need techniques for all three of these.
That's for sure. At least with like dancing, there's that pressure to not necessarily look a certain way, because we don't always use mirrors, but just like if you know you're not on with the choreography, it definitely pulls you down. And um, I would say it's similar to like the contest thing, where if you know you got it right, your testosterone is probably higher or you feel higher. And when you're not, it definitely brings you down.
Yeah. And if you've had a hard day, I mean, that may show up in the way your body is expressing the emotion being conveyed through the dance. Like there's static there, mixed messaging. So how do you process what you might be bringing into the studio enough so that it doesn't get pulled into what you're trying to express through your movement? Yeah. Thank you, David. How about you, Mustaqim?
Yeah, I was thinking about the consistency to do it recovery every day. Yeah, because it will be never ending work, something like that. Yes, I think I found the challenge in there to be consistent to doing that recovery too.
Yeah, I think most people do, Mr. King. Yeah. Jayesh.
Yeah, this kind of like an internal practice. I received one of this from one of my teachers. It's like yoga nidra. So we lie down on the bed or floor, and then we relax the muscles. So my attention is moving from each of the body part, like I'm starting from the toes of my feet and moving up and giving attention to each of the body parts. And whenever I pay attention to my body cell, then the cell gets relaxed. And that's how I travel from toes to the top of my head, moving into each limb and trying to feel, sense each muscle. And as my attention goes there, it automatically gets relaxed. And that's how I relax my entire body. And then my breath comes down and mind follows the breath. So somebody is waking and the body and mind is at sleep. And that practice gives me so much relaxation and so much recovery.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah. Sometimes that's called a body scan.
Yeah, body scan. Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So then body is sleeping and I'm waking, I'm awake, just observing the maybe waking consciousness, or they call it a conscious sleep also.
Very cool. Yeah, that might not be something that works to relax for everyone, but I know I've certainly found it relaxing, and it sounds like you do as well. And that could be another practice that people might enjoy doing. Yeah. Yep. Commonly known as a body scan, at least in English.
Yeah, and it's a very useful little exercise.
Thank you, Jayesh. Yep. How about you, Levita? What are you thinking about?
Um, modern Western culture and financial systems don't allot time and space for rest and recovery. Especially since recovery is not considered something that can be monetized. Even though if you don't get it, it causes other problems that cost money.
Yeah, it can be demonetizing. Yeah.
Yeah, but the modern Western culture's desire to always be going, always be doing, always be putting a dollar value on every single thing. And in this particular thing, I think that people who have access to ancient systems, whether they stumbled into it because they were learning other things and they were given access to rest and recovery systems, or whether because they actually come from a culture where these things are practiced, they do a lot better with the concept.
Or traditions are intact. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I've done the body scans and they're very relaxing, but I almost never make it to the top of my head. I'm usually unconscious halfway through. Because I mean, now I can do it all the way through. But about 10 years ago, if I sat in a chair and closed my eyes, within 30 seconds, I was out. You know, because I had subscribed to I've got to be moving all time.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's that Calvinistic thing against rest.
Yeah. I mean, that was another thing that was on my mind earlier that I didn't necessarily know how to articulate. So, Levita, I'm glad you're touching on that. I feel like this is something we need to be conscious of, to make conscious that you know, you and I and everyone growing up in cultures that are very you know, exploitative of labor and such like that, we kind of need to check ourselves. Like, am I getting drawn into that? Am I getting sucked into that?
Yeah, there's a saying, and I don't remember where it came from, but it's from a native culture, and they talk about when the last tree is cut down and the last river polluted, you know, people will realize that you cannot eat money. And
Yeah.
and that's where that whole idea of like rest comes into play. And I'm pretty certain everybody on the call has been in a situation where they desperately needed to take a nap or go to sleep, and somebody was pushing on them just to do one more thing or finish this thing for me or whatever. Because we have to always keep going, even though we don't.
Yep. Western culture is definitely exploitive in that way, and we have farmed that out to everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you go to a shoe factory in Indonesia or a clothing factory in Peru, and you're going to see the same thing. People trying to get everybody to work incredibly long, difficult, hard hours for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw somewhere, and I know this part to be true. If you have a baby, the doctor tells you 8 weeks minimum of rest before you go back to work and resume normal activities, such as they are. And no, not 8 weeks. I'm sorry, 6 weeks. And many people don't take that time. Many women do not take that time. They're back at work 3 weeks later or a month later. But did you
Yeah.
know that in many places in the United States, you cannot sell a puppy until it's 8 weeks old?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because it needs to be with its mother for 8 weeks. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong there.
Yeah, sure. But what about human babies too? Yeah.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
why in civilized countries like Sweden, the parents get like a year each of parental leave, which makes a lot more sense. But
Yeah.
we'll never see that here because Jeff Bezos might not make another $1 billion this year if we did that.
Let's not get started on that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Lavita. Yeah, that was good stuff. Yeah. Hey, Lon, are you there? I know you're listening, but I don't know if you're able to speak.
I'm here. So my question is, from my experience, there's been a lot of restorative practices that I didn't realize I was doing wrong. And Mishak, you and I talk about this a lot, doing something for real versus the imitation of it. And Cherie, like when I first started doing stretch therapy with you, the revelation I had that, oh, I used to think stretching was XYZ, and now I saw that I was just contorting my body to look like a back bend or look like a split. And this is the imitation without even understanding what the practice is about. So the world that I come from is a lot of quote unquote high achievers who like to compete over who's more stressed out and who has more work to do. And when they finally do, oh my goodness, take a night to sleep 8 hours, they do not feel refreshed at all. They don't get into deep sleep. They don't feel restored or anything, even if they put in the effort, because really we don't know what we're doing. So given the trap of imitation, could someone speak to that? Like, how do you even catch yourself that you're doing it wrong?
That's a great question, Paley.
Well, one of the things that will tip you off is what you just mentioned. You get 8 hours of sleep and you wake up tired. That tells you that that's not enough. And that's the thing is, if you have a sleep deficit, you cannot make that up in one night. It takes days to make up a sleep deficit. And you have to give yourself those, or you're going to spend all of your time fatigued. And the other thing that helps is having somebody to teach you who knows what they're doing. which is, for instance, why I sent you to Cherie to learn what she has to teach, because she knows what she's doing and she can show you, as opposed to the stuff that you were getting from that place that shall not be named.
Shuri, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, it goes back to my comment at the beginning in saying that doing it over a very long time, then you realize the benefit. You can't do this in an instant. You can't even do it over 1 quarter, like 3 months. You really have to give it a good long practice. You know, give yourself a year to try and get into a natural rhythm, even of the seasons. You have great seasons in the US where it's much more defined. Where I live in Sydney, our winters are not that cold. And so we don't really have that clear definition, but it feels like in wintertime you should be sleeping more, and in summertime you sleep a little bit less, and you actually feel yourself coming to the end of the day, and you have to ritualize the way you turn everything off and have your meal as early as possible so that you're not sleeping on it. All of those things, when you change your lifestyle, it's a permanent change, and you just keep refining that all the time. That's when you start feeling the benefit of these restorative practices and meditation and so forth. You know, it's just such a laugh when people can do a weekend workshop and call themselves a master of Reiki or whatever. You know, you just think, oh, please, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get comedians sending all of that up, and they're right. They're right. Don't kid yourself that even doing it for a month is enough and go, oh, that didn't work. And many people comment to me, oh, I tried that stretching thing and it didn't work. And I said, how often do you actually practice in lifestyle changes to be able to accommodate those things? And it's true, they just don't give it a good strong lick. You know, and Jayesh's right. Every day you've got to try and do that little bit of practice. Find something that you like, stick to it, and then add a little thing more and a little thing more and a little thing more. Don't try to do it all at once. It's just impossible to make it stick. So it becomes embodied, and so that you feel, this is what I need right now. This is what I need right now. And I come from a place where, having been in a very, very high stress job, I thought living on 6 hours of sleep was great, but I was very young and I had energy to burn, and I burnt myself out, thoroughly and properly burnt myself out. And thought, wow, that's really absurd. When you look back in time to what you used to do and you think, yeah, I got away with it just so long. And then the body goes, you're not paying attention. I'm going to tip you into something really painful and really debilitating to make you wake up and stop. You know, give you a really bad flu or pneumonia or kidney stone trouble or something. You know, you're not listening. So the body will do something to you to make you stop. And that's when you know, you think, right, I'm not paying attention. So Hailan's right, you know, it takes time. And that's the way you're going to find out it's not enough. It has to be a full change in lifestyle, not for just a temporary time. That's what I just wanted to emphasize.
Thanks, Shuri. Cool. All right. So, Jonathan, how about you? Any last thoughts?
Really, just sleep is what I use. I'm a very good sleeper. I can sleep 8, 9 hours, even 12 hours if I need, and that's what makes me refreshed.
It's a good skill.
I'm mildly jealous. I mean, I can be in bed for a long time, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's quality sleep. So I'm trying to fine tune that for myself too. Yeah. Yeah. Anything we need to add before we wrap up, Mush Talk?
There's one last thing for the internal recovery, and that is, it is of great benefit to any living human being to have a spiritual practice.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yes. This does not mean a religion. don't care about your religion, except insofar as it can give you a spiritual practice if that's what you're doing. A spiritual practice is where you connect to anything that you perceive of as greater than yourself and work in concert with that. So you can be an atheist and connect to nature, right? It's not as much fun as some of the rest of us. I mean, Jayesh has always got a party going on over there. You know, there's always some incredibly cool festival happening. You can't beat that. But developing your own spiritual practice, however you understand that, is, I think, essential to part of this. So that's my last word on it. I have spoken. All
Well, there
right,
you go.
I'm going to flip us into Brady Bunch mode. And here we are.
All right then. So thank you everybody for being here, and thank you to those of you who are watching on the replay. We can all wave to you.
Wave. And we
We're
will see
sticking it
you
out.
next Sunday.
We'll see you next Sunday.